If we look at the collective gut of humanity, gut health, how is it looking for most of the world right now?
Oh, it's a painful question. The gut goes through stages of healing. And so something that's good for you isn't always good for you at a certain stage. We teach people how to understand their bodies and how to understand the natural processes. There is no chemical on this earth that functions better than the body itself, and nature knows how to function. And almost every prescription ever prescribed after 20 to 30 years, they found, oh, well, sorry, it wasn't doing too hot. And there was a lot of people that got hurt or died. It's amazing the way nature can take care of you so much better. I still do broths regularly because they're so nourishing. They're so good for your skin, cartilage, your hair, your nails. But what this allows is that the microvilli are allowed to heal. So when you have soft meats that are full of the nutrients and they're very easy to break down.
Do you have any other tips for people that have maybe been doing carnivore for a little while that can maybe take them to the next level sort of thing?
Absolutely. And then when you get from ages 3 to 7, your bacteria can go in and your immune system will allow bacteria to help target other harmful bacteria. And so now you've got a two-pronged effect. You've got your immune system who's been trained that certain things are good or not good. And then you've got a immune system that's working hand in hand with bacteria. And so if the immune system can't get to something, this bacteria has helped tag things now, and the bacteria that's living inside you will go in and will help. But when you've got scared parents that are, oh my gosh, every cough or, it's an ear infection, it's so painful, or, whatever it is, they're going in. Well, the doctor is just trying to solve a problem. Okay. The doctor's like, how do I get this mom happy? And so, yeah, it's out of habit, but it's also out of, well, I want to feel like I solved the problem. I'm a doctor. I know all the answers. No offense. I'm not trying to be rude, but that really is where they come from. And so I'm going to solve this issue. You have a runny nose. I'm going to give you this antibiotic. And so if parents will sit back and step away from that state of fear, and then even adults, just because you have an illness does not mean you need to go in and get an antibiotic. We would really take care of that. We wouldn't even have to change anything in the medical realm. We just stopped running in every time there's an issue. And that's one thing that we do a lot with our foundation is we teach people how to be their own advocates. We teach people how to understand their bodies and how to understand the natural processes. Because if you see that, if you didn't understand how a scar worked, and you cut yourself and now there's this hardening structure over it, oh my gosh, it's a different color, you might try to do something about it. But when you understand that this is the way that the body works and this is good, it's protecting itself, oh, okay, right? We take that fear out. To your second point, when it comes to the glyphosate, I've seen a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. I've read a lot of those things and some more that when it comes to the, military industrial complex, a lot of things, Teflon, all of that stuff has come from ways that we tried to utilize these toxins or poisons in warfare to kill people. Oh, we've got a lot of extra. How can we use it still here and save money, on all of this wasted product? Well, let's put it on people's pans, or let's spray people's food with it. And when it comes to grains, this is another aspect of why we should do things as naturally as possible. Did this naturally occur? Because I don't know if you've ever tried to grow. I'm not sure if we talked about this, but have you ever tried to grow wheat yourself, and harvest it? And
not wheat, no, but other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So wheat, you have to grow such a mass amount of wheat and then harvesting it and everything. And I did that and I came up with this handful amount. And I was like, you really have to have large scale machines and you have to have mills and you have to have all this stuff. And that was not a natural occurrence. Eating grains was not something that occurred on homesteads for the average human being for thousands of years. They did not do that. It wasn't feasible. With all the kids that I had and all the other things I had to do, sitting there with a mortar and pestle and grinding wheat, I would have made 2 little cakes and it probably would have taken me 3 hours. It wasn't something that we were supposed to be ingesting. But what the government did is it went, what's the cheapest thing that we could possibly grow on a mass scale? And then how can we get, I'm sure you've read, not just one crop, but 2. Well, we'll spray it all with glyphosate, a decade, and dry it all out. And then we can harvest it twice as much. And let's also create it so that it is, uh, what's the word? Um, Genetically modified so that it's not affected by what we spray. So you've got this genetically modified toxin being taken in that already has plant toxins all in it, but now it's got all of this other stuff, and on top of that, it's got folic acid, which is just as harmful, being sprayed with these synthetic nutrients. And we wonder why our kids have all of these gut issues and all of these health issues, and then they're going through puberty earlier. They're healthy bacteria. They're having lactose intolerance. Well, like you said, it's an antibiotic. It's killing off the healthy microbiome. And there's lactase, which is created by a bacteria to create the process of breaking down lactose. And when you give kids, like you said, bread that's laced with glyphosate, and even organic has been proven to show just as much toxins in it, glyphosate and other poisons, just because of the rain and the flow into the underground waters and everything. I mean, the water systems, the air systems, they really are completely contaminated. We have some land. We have about 30 acres in Missouri, and we keep it very clean. I mean, we won't spray anything on it, and we harvest, and we're but all the people around us do. And so to think that we're not getting the same spray, and that we're not also getting from the underground water and then from the rain and everything that's occurring, that we're not getting that is pretty silly. And if you look up where a lot of the organic farms are, they're right next to the toxic ones. It's not like
Right.
they're so away. And so you bring up such a good point. Why go back to eating, a carnivore diet? Well, if you can raise an animal on organic, on grass, they do have a lot of the ability through a rumen, which is that first chamber of their stomach, to break down even glyphosate. It's been proven that they can break down a lot of things. Now, not in large amounts, but if they're eating in a space that is not being sprayed with it directly, they can break down and get rid of a lot of the issues. And then their meat is much cleaner and much healthier for us to digest. And we're avoiding the hormones, we're avoiding the antibiotics that you bring up, we're avoiding so many of those issues that are causing ailments with our children today, which is just, it's what we're seeing with children is just so terrible, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I was going to use the same word. Absolutely heartbreaking. It's so much of what you're saying for people watching. I always like to, we can overcomplicate things or keep it simple. You've used the word a couple times, just return to what's natural. Like having our little toddlers and putting their hand under hand sanitizer 5 times a day, that never happened. It's just a recent thing that's happening now. That would make you cringe a little bit. The more things I start thinking about like that, it's just crazy.
It's
Wash your
so
hands
fun.
25 times a day. It's like kids would have been playing in the dirt with the bugs and the soil and stuff like that.
Skin is the first defense. It's the first defense. And the reason why it's the first defense is not because it's this waterproof layer. It's because you have oils that keep certain types of bacteria alive. And so what we should be doing is, if you've got a little bit dirty hands, just go over and rinse your hands off with some water and dry them, and you're good. If you haven't come in contact with, blood or feces or something, you're good,
Right.
because the oil barrier in your hands and the bacteria that can only survive in that space are your first defense. That really is. And when you kill that first defense, bacteria get on your hands now, and it can stay there until you get some sort of cut or whatever, you put it in your mouth. Normally you have that bacteria in your hands that's good and healthy, and you put something on and you get some food or whatever that might have something that's not very good. Well, it's killed just by what's living on your hands, or in the process of the emulsification in your mouth as it's mixing with saliva and other things. And so you're still totally fine. But when you give a petri dish, so if you take a petri dish and you put a bacteria in a completely sterile petri dish, it will take over the petri dish completely. But if you put it in with healthy bacteria, it might survive for a little bit, but it will be gone within 24 hours. Bacteria fight bacteria. A strep fights a strep. This is the way nature, God created our bodies and our environments and the earth to function. There's an opposite in all things. So if there's something bad here, there's something else naturally to counter that. And that is the balance of nature. You know, we talked about this again right before we started, but we measure everything in the Integrated Health Foundation through 3 pillars. And the first pillar is there's current studies on it. And this is actually one of the least of our focuses, but because clinical studies can be manipulated, they can be paid off by certain people, you know, so we really make sure that we understand the studies that we're utilizing, and we understand the purpose and the motives behind them. But is it clinically proven? And there are some things that can't be clinically proven so far, but is it clinically proven? The second thing is it something humans have been doing for not just a few generations, but thousands of years? Is this something that occurs, you know, in the human process? And was it successful? And then the third one is just downright, can it happen naturally? Like if I was out in the woods and I needed to do this to survive, could I do it on my own? Would I be reliant on some synthetic manufacturer for a supplement? Or would I be reliant on a red light? Would I be reliant on, and I'm not saying that all those things are bad, but the sooner we get back to natural, uh, because nature knows how to do things in our bodies far, far better. This is an amazing doctor. I love him. And he was like, I stepped back from practicing medicine and prescribing when I realized that there is no chemical on this earth that functions better than the body itself, and nature knows how to function. And almost every prescription ever prescribed after 20 to 30 years, they found, oh, well, sorry, it wasn't doing too hot. And there was a lot of people that got hurt or died. So we came up with a new one. So try this new one now, right? So every chemical has some sort of horrific bad reaction in the body, but nature doesn't do that. When we do things the way that we were meant to, when we wake with the sun, when we are calm, when we eat the foods that we're meant to eat, our bodies thrive.
Quick interruption. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about our documentary, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, or supporting it, please visit donate.healinghumanity.movie. Our goal is to reach millions of people that are hopeless right now, and sharing the examples of real people over the course of 1 year that are undertaking a proper human diet to overcome obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, fertility issues. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. We are also selling these shirts, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet. Every penny we get from those goes towards the documentary. And last, we have memberships. If you click the little join button, it's best to do it on desktop. Under any one of my YouTube videos, you can join and become a member. We have hundreds of members right now. We do members only videos. We do members only behind the scenes. You can email me as a member and I'll answer you. And every penny from that goes to support the documentary. And the last thing is we have these Redmond's portable salt shakers. These things are awesome. You can get the best salt. You can take it with you. We sell these on the website along with our water bottles and cutting boards, and every penny from all of those goes 100% towards supporting the documentary. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free. All of these links are in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to today's video.
Our families thrive, and then our communities thrive. And that's how we get past this. You know, when you ask the question, microbially, are we heading, you know, down the right path? And it's like, no. But when we can start spreading the word and teaching people how to live, you know, a natural, thriving life, and that doesn't mean you have to go live out in the sticks, but it does mean to incorporate some principles and just ask yourself, could I do this naturally? There was a point where we were spending so much money on supplements, and I just went, I can't keep this up. This is so expensive. And I remember praying about it and going, why would you put me in a world that's so toxic that I have to pay thousands of dollars for all these supplements? And I can't pay for that for my kids, but they're not going to get the vitamins they need, you know? And I was just going, this isn't fair. How is this possible? And that's when I started learning about, you know, regularly people ate the brain, regular people ate the liver and of these animals, ruminant animals, a heart, thymus, ovary, you know, all of these different parts of the animal were all utilized. Oxtail, you know, we talked about in the information I sent you, how nourishing, you know, chicken feet, oxtail, all of this are in broths for healing the gut. And when you understand what your body needs to build and create, especially recovering from a chronic illness, it needs To heal your brain, you're going to need to eat nutrients that can only be found in the brain to heal, all of these different areas of your body. And no part of the animal is ever wasted. In our traditionally, ancestrally, none of it was wasted. And now we waste so much of it. It's horrible. We just eat this muscle meat that it really is better than eating a lot of other things, but we're missing out on a lot of nutrients. And if we ate the whole animal and we're grateful and thankful for the entire animal and utilize the entire animal, we would not be devoid of any nutrients. We actually wouldn't need a single supplement, and it wouldn't cost us a dime, and it wouldn't make us reliant on a manufacturer who's trying to make money off of us trying to be healthy.
Right. I love it. Like, I'm 564 days carnivore now, and we're doing this documentary on carnivore, and I was all fired up about carnivore. But the big realization I had was this isn't just because I'm eating only meat, it's because I'm returning to what is most natural for humans, given the options we have in the world with the 60,000 products in the grocery store and all this other stuff. And it started with the diet and nutrition, and that's a huge part of it. But then a lot of other things like getting outside and getting fresh air and grounding and sunlight in my eyes first thing in the morning and all of these things. So I always try to encourage people, when you hear about carnivore, you think that sounds insane. But then when you really dig into it and realize, is it really insane doing what humans have naturally done since the start of time? That's really all we're advocating for here. It's kind of sobering, frankly, when you look around in the world and you're like, this is what I'm left with. Like, this is given the circumstances and the options, this is kind of what I'm left with here to eat. But one of the other questions I had for you after our last call, well, actually, let me just say this first. In terms of, it sounds like carnivore is probably the best way to heal our gut and heal our health and bring us back to natural. Is there some nuance to that? Or if I have a really damaged gut and I want to heal it quicker, are there some things I can do within the spectrum, I guess, of eating a proper human diet, maybe a little bit differently, other than, like, for me, it's been beef, butter, bacon, eggs, and I haven't really thought about it. On our last call, you mentioned soft meat, for example, and you started talking about a few other things. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yes, that is a huge part of what we do. So when we understand the gut, so you're having you have your stomach, and then you move into the small intestines, and that's broken up into 3 different points. I won't go into all of it. And then you move into the large intestine. And in the small intestine, you have these little villi. Okay. So, and then on top of each, these little micro hairs. And then each of those hairs have little micro villi, right, on top of them. And so it's like this shag carpet, you could say, all throughout the small intestine, not into the large intestine, but just in the small intestine. And that is where these bacteria are living, that the healthy bacteria are living and thriving. And the absorption of a lot of this food happens. Now, we do break down fats and proteins ourselves. So we do have lipase and, all of these, digestive enzymes that our pancreas creates. But what people overlook is that we have bacteria that increase bile salts. So our bile salts, and so that bile salts, help us break down fat. What some people experience when they start doing carnivore is they'll be like, oh, I had, the diarrhea, or I had this or that. That can be oxalate dumping. It can be a lot of things, but it can also, which is very common, be a lack. If you've been eating a very unhealthy diet, you swap over, well, you have a lack of a certain type of bacteria that helps you create more bile salts to help you break down the fat. And you can't keep up with what you're taking in. And so you're having the diarrhea. But once your body starts to get used to what it's taking in, you're getting the nutrients you need. That proper bacteria, so the bad bacteria start dying off, the healthy bacteria start thriving, and then your ability to make the bile salts so you can break down fat increases. It can increase 30%. And so while your body in a carnivore diet can break down fats and proteins to an extent on its own, you have bacteria that are healthy that increase that you need it on a large scale. And think of that shag carpet again. So you've got food going down through the shag carpet, and it is damaged very, very easily. And I don't want to get too much into this, but eating a bunch of fiber is horrible is absolutely horrible and very detrimental for that microvilli. So you do not need fiber. And I know that you probably covered that in a lot of other videos, so I won't get into it. But imagine that small intestine as just very sensitive and a space for you to absorb a lot of nutrients in a gentle way. When we move people through our program, we encourage them to only eat soups. So you're on a very, I don't want to say strict or limited, because you can have all sorts of kinds. We have lots of recipes we have people utilize. And this has been being done for thousands of years in many cultures. But the meats need to be as soft as possible, because then the whole purpose is we're rebuilding the gut. And again, like we both said, most people don't realize how badly damaged their guts are, because they don't, I feel all right, I'm fine. But if you've been eating any kind of Western diet, your gut's pretty damaged. And so we have to heal that. And so it can take at the very minimum 30 days. And so we encourage our clients to stay on, 6 months to 2 years. Some people stay on the soups for 12 months, up to 24 months. Me personally, when I went through the program, I still do broths regularly, because they're so nourishing. They're so good for your skin, cartilage, your hair, your nails. I mean, I want what's best for my body. But it's extremely good for when you're sick. You're getting a lot of powerful nutrients to your body in a very easily digestible way. Your body doesn't have to do a lot of work to break down the fats and the nutrients that are in broths. And so we have the meat be cooked for just about 2 hours, and then you drink all the broth, about 48 ounces a day, which is a lot, but it's amazing. And then you're eating all sorts of soft meats. We have a whole array of soft meats that you can eat, and we keep the plants to a very, very minimum. Sometimes we'll let them, put some of the plants, depending, everybody's different. So I hate to give this just a generic, but some can, put garlic and things like that in and then take it out and then eat it. Some keep it in it. But what this allows is that the microvilli are allowed to heal. So when you have soft meats that are full of the nutrients and they're very easily to break down. Imagine biting into a steak and chewing a steak that was cooked on the grill versus, a tender falling apart roast, type of thing. It's very, very different way that your body's going to handle that. And when you look over history, soups were the way to go. That's what every culture did, especially at least 6 to 8 months in the winter. I mean, that's what they did. And also, Greece, they still do this in many European areas, but you put the meat and all of this, from the entire animal that was killed in a huge stock pot, and you left it on the stove or over the fire, and people would warm it up and then have some, and then you just left it out. You didn't refrigerate it, because we didn't have refrigeration, right? And so, and it's perfectly fine. Everybody's perfectly healthy. But eating foods that way allow us to avoid other things that cause damage. And then we also go back to the Maillard effect. So the Maillard effect is where that glycation happens in food that is cooked. So we talked a little bit about glycation happening inside our bodies, but when we cook food, you get that kind of caramelization on the bacon or on the steak or on the bread or whatever it is. It's when it starts to turn dark. And so it's not when just sugar itself is caramelized. That's a different process, but it's when a sugar and a protein are cooked together. It's usually over 240, degrees Fahrenheit. And what that does is it creates, again, those AGEs. So the advanced glycation end products, and those are inflammatory. And so in our situation, we want to avoid those with people with nervous system disorders, because we are trying to keep the nervous system as calm as possible. And it is possible that people handle a certain amount of those regularly and they're fine, but large amounts of those aren't super healthy. So, when you cook the eggs and they get a little brown and crispy around the outsides, that's that process of the Maillard effect in cooking. And so we avoid that completely. So when we say soft meats, we really mean it's not touching a fire, it's not touching a skillet. It is boiled and cooked to a very soft texture, pulled apart, you're eating it, and then drinking all the broth. And we see just incredible results within 30 days because the gut heals so quickly. People can heal eating steaks and eating bacon, but it's not going to be as quickly, and you might not have a full healing of the gut if you're never giving the gut a break and you're not getting the nourishing broths are so immensely. I mean, just imagine, the difference between having, someone rub sandpaper on your forehead versus having a warm cloth placed on your forehead, right? Totally different experience. Right. This is your, so we're going to put calm, nourishing things through it. Not, I love bacon too, but not in this stage. We're not doing bacon. We're not doing things like that.
That's so interesting. My wife was vegetarian most of her life. She's doing carnivore now, and she doesn't like steaks or the harder meats. She's always been going for the softer meats, and maybe she's just onto something this whole time. I'm like, it's fine with me, but I've noticed the same thing. I want to incorporate more. My daughter Emma as well. The broths. Every time I have them, you feel incredible. Do you have any other? That's like a great sort of carnivore power tip, is focusing on the softer meats and the broths early on. Do you have any other tips for people that have maybe been doing carnivore for a little while that can maybe take them to the next level sort of thing?
Absolutely. One of the big ones, now we don't do this early on. So you have to, the gut goes through stages of healing. And so something that's good for you isn't always good for you at a certain stage. So say a probiotic, or when I say probiotic, I do not mean purchasing one. We're going to do things naturally. So the way that it occurs naturally. And so something like a kefir. And so that's milk that has had kefir grains put in it. So it's fermented, or it's just sat out on the counter. I would just take my milk from my cows and set it out on the counter, and it ferments. And that's what's been done since people started milking cows. No one had cold milk ever, right? And so everyone was taking in a lot of probiotics. But when you have a damaged gut, you cannot make the lactase that you need. And so you can have a lot of negative effects if you're trying to drink a kefir or eat a yogurt or cheese or things like that. And so you have to heal the gut first. So we very much limit a lot of the dairy and other things like that until we know the gut is healed. And we base that, we meet daily with our clients, and we make sure that we have all the proper signs and symptoms are in check before we move them on to another phase. So we have phases of eating. And so the next phase is where we would start introducing probiotics, all homemade. And so whether that's ensuring that it's got, large amounts of reuteri or just the lactobacillus or, whatever, we're going to create a healthy space for good bacteria to thrive after the gut's healed. And then we're going to start ingesting those certain amounts. We do really small amounts. When you are healing the gut and in any way restricting anything, and I hate to say restricting because nature naturally restricts you. And so to say, oh, if you're doing anything that's restricting or limiting the amount of food you can get, that's so wrong. So if you read anything online, it'll say it's never healthy to restrict your diet. You should have a colorful plate. Well, nature doesn't allow you to have a colorful plate all year round. Okay, so nature itself restricts you from doing what you're saying is supposed to be the most healthy thing. And no human being has been able to eat oranges all year round or bananas or anything like that. But when you are able to sit back and start adding in these nutrients, your body has not been utilizing certain enzymes to break down certain nutrients, right? So what your body does is you eat something for a certain amount of time, your body goes, oh, well, I don't need this enzyme because I haven't been eating it. So it makes less of it. Well, what people tend to do on carnivore or whatever is they have a cheat day, or maybe not even just a sweet, they just eat something outside of it. So maybe they eat like a large amount of carrots or broccoli or something. And then they feel horrible. They feel absolutely terrible. And they're like, but it's not like, is carrots really terrible? They're trying to figure this out. Well, the reality is that you need a certain enzyme to break down carrots, right? And so what we have people do is we go, if you want to add something in, even just like, just to have every now and then you do like a very small amount. You do a teaspoon of carrots one day and just let your body sense that it's in your body and let your body get the signals going, okay, we're going to start eating this. So let's start making this enzyme, or else you eat a large amount of it. And then your body freaks out. You feel terrible. You've got all sorts of gut, pain and symptoms and things like that. And then, it doesn't go well. And then it's the same thing too with like cream cheeses. When you start adding in cheeses, you can't just add it in a large amount. You do it very slowly. You make sure that you're tolerating it. And that's how it would occur in nature. Like you don't just all of a sudden one day open the door and there's just blueberries everywhere. Like you get a couple blossom and you pick a couple, and then a few days go by and then you've got some more ripened, and you know, that's how it would naturally occur. You never get bombarded by 50 strawberries. That's just not the way nature works. And so we really encourage people to do things slowly, to whether it's making the natural probiotics with the kefirs or the yogurts. And we also have a process where we make certain kefirs and yogurts and put it on our skin. It's extremely nourishing. You're repopulating the bacteria on the hands, on the skin, on the whole body. You'll notice, I mean, the women that I talk to notice just incredible difference in their skin's elasticity and their glow. You would think that it would leave you sticky. It doesn't. It absorbs almost immediately. And, you know, when you look at how much milk people would have in general, I would get 2 gallons of milk at least from one cow. And that is way more than we need. And so you're making cheese and you're making all this stuff, but you're leaving milk out on the counters, you know, because you don't have refrigeration. That's just, stuff's just happening to it. You're like, now I've got kefir, and now I've got cottage cheese, and now I've got cream cheese. And, you know, and it just keeps fermenting. There gets to be a point where you're using it for other things. And so at some point, people started going, oh, I'm going to put this on my skin. And it is incredible. You're using, you can make homemade beef tallow, whipped tallow, and put that on your skin. It's a superfood for your skin. So there's lots of things, you know, carnivores can learn about that utilize every aspect of the animal, not just for your gut health, but for, you know, your skin, for your hair. It's amazing.
Today's video is sponsored proudly by ButcherBox. They recently launched a new initiative where you can support your local USA American farmers. Support American farmers with this new US pasture-raised beef from ButcherBox. This is USDA choice meat. Look at this ribeye. It's absolutely fantastic. The cows are never in feedlots. They're pasture raised. There's no antibiotics, no hormones. You're supporting a local American farmer. I get so many people asking me, how can I do that? Now you can do it with ButcherBox. There's more details, including a really special offer if you use the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to today's video.
It's amazing the way nature can take care of you, so much better than going to Sephora can take care of you.
Right. All right. One more question. There's going to be a lot of people watching this who their guts are destroyed, whether they know it or not, and they have depression, anxiety, or some of these more severe issues, and they want to improve. What advice would you give them? Like, how do I get started? What do I do? What's the first thing I can do to go down this path?
That's a really good question. I think the first step is, you know, some people get overwhelmed. So especially if you have a family you're trying to do this with, it can be very hard, not because it's hard, because it's very natural. It's actually not hard in this sense, but in what our norm is, and going against what all of our neighbors and all of our friends and all of our family are doing. And that aspect can be socially and emotionally very hard. And so don't overwhelm. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to just all of a sudden do all of these things and make all of these changes. You know, don't run faster than you're able. You know, let's step back and go, okay, what's the first thing we can do? And the first thing that you can do, you know, if you're eating a Western diet, is you can step back and you can say, okay, I'm not going to do any more processed foods, sugars. And you can start cleaning those out of your pantry. Stop buying them for your kids. Stop buying them for lunch when you're at work. Stop doing that. Give yourself a week to do that. And now that you've given yourself that week, or maybe it takes a little longer, maybe it takes 2 weeks, and you're not buying it, you're not bringing it back in. Now you're going to instead start, okay, we're not doing cereals anymore for breakfast. We're doing eggs. You know, we're going to start adding these things in and just make that agreement. This is what we're doing. For me personally, you know, it was really hard because a lot of people felt in some way that I was, you know, abusing my kids because they weren't able to eat cereal in the morning. And I just, it's something where I think you have to be pretty mentally strong and capable. And you also have to do a little research yourself. And so for our clients, we provide all of that information just because they're usually so ill, they can't go do that. But for an everyday average, you know, person who's watching this, hey, just do a little research so you can withstand a lot of that pushback you're going to get, because a lot of people are going to get pushback from doctors, pushback from neighbors. If your kid goes to public school, families at activities that you guys do together. And the main reason people quit or stop doing this, it's not because it's not healthy for them. It's not because they weren't feeling amazing on it. It's because it was too hard to do in the society that we're in. And so get enough information so that you can withstand that. So you can stand for truth. no matter what's around you, and you'll do what's right for you, and do it slowly. You don't have to make all these changes overnight. And there's a lot of support, like Carrie, there's your channel, there's lots of other channels that give, ideas, tips, support, community. That's a big thing. Find other people, find, keto groups, that feed kids, the same thing. So your kids don't feel like they're, left out or strange. And there is support, and you do go through it slowly. And then you incorporate these things week by week, and you'll find that it wasn't very hard. The people who try to do it all at once, they're overwhelmed. It's hard.
Right. That's great advice. I love the advice too. Like that's a simple step anyone can do is get rid of the cereal for your kids. Bacon and eggs for breakfast instead of cereal. That's a huge first step. Uh, Malia, this is awesome. I really love having you on. This is so fascinating. I could talk for hours. Could you talk a little bit more about IHF? And I'll have links in the description below for that and the sources and everything else that we talked about earlier. But can you talk a little bit more about that or anything you want to shout out or mention before we wrap up?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So at Integrated Health Foundation, the main goal is to just help people understand that there is a natural way to thrive, and you don't have to be relying on anyone. We don't want people relying on us. Unfortunately, the majority of people that come to us are so desperately ill that they need a lot of one-on-one help. And so we provide that. And as soon as they're capable, that while they still have lifelong access to our information and to our help and meetings with us, once a week, they are almost all of them, hundreds have gone through our program, and they are resilient, and they come and they share with, other clients that come through, and there's just a thriving community. And so I think that while we have a purpose, we're helping people that are, desperately in need of help, and we love that. I think that everyone can become, this ambassador of truth and health and wellness. Not everybody wants to hear about it, so keep that in mind. Make sure that you're being prudent in the way that you share information. But you can be that for other people. You can give little bits of information. You can connect with other people in groups, because the way things are going, like you touched on earlier, it's not looking good. It's really not looking good for the next generation and the generations after. And so the only way that we can stop that is by getting back to what's natural, by sharing the information. And there's scientific studies that show that. And so at Integrated Health Foundation, it's our, desire to share those studies, to share the history, to share, what works in clinical settings right now with the studies that we're putting through. And hopefully we'll have the results of those studies back in the spring. We're so excited about it. We'll be able to give, doctors and, amazing podcasters and things like that a way to reference, hey, this really works. Eating this way really works, or some way to back up, while there is so much information out there, it's very, very hard to get people's attention. And so that's our main focus right now. We have people that we're helping, but getting these studies through is so important for us to really move that, pinnacle of truth to help people recover and avoid illness in the future. And so that's what we're about.
That's awesome. I just gotta say, it's like one of the most rewarding things in the world when you can help somebody heal. And that's what you guys are doing, both with the individuals, which is awesome, but then these studies, it's going to be so impactful, because that's one of the biggest arguments against carnivore or eating this way is show me the long-term study, or show me this, or show me that sort of thing. So I'm so excited for what you guys are doing. If I can ever shout out anything you're doing, please reach out anytime. Would absolutely love to. And you always have an open invite to come back. This has been great. You got to get your own YouTube channel going. Malia, have you ever thought about that? You probably got enough going on already, but.
So it's with our studies have been our main focus. And as crazy as that, it's just we have these wait lists. We have about 200 some people on wait list to come through our program, and we just can't get to enough people. And so, yes, we want to, but we really appreciate you having us on and just getting healing to as many people. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right. Have a good day.
We'll see you.